All right, so my next guest, bringing on at the end of the bench, is Christian Mazzone. Played at Rutgers, currently plays in the Peel Archers, and is originally from Stony Brook, New York. How are you doing today, Christian?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. How's the weather there in Washington? Is it a rainy day, or is it one of the better ones?
No. Right now is like when Washington is like the best place on earth. It's like 80 and sunny every day. Once we get into like October, though, then it will start to get gray again.
Yeah, I got that gray right now. It's like 60,
Yeah.
70 degrees and just pouring rain.
Yeah, from the end of June to like the end of September, prime weather.
Awesome. Well, obviously
Yeah.
you're not originally from there. You went to Melville High School, coming out of kind of Long Island, New York. How do you kind of get started in lacrosse? Obviously, Long Island's one of those kind of hotbeds in terms of where lacrosse
Yep.
kind of is. But is that just were you always playing that, or growing up, or did you kind of start later?
Yeah, so I have 3 brothers and a sister, so I'm the fourth of 5. And my dad played lacrosse. He was a goalie. He grew up on Long Island. He played for Cary High School in Franklin Square. And then he actually went to Penn for a couple of years before he had a transfer back home and quit lacrosse. He transferred to Hofstra because his mom got sick. But my dad is a lacrosse super fan. He goes to every game he possibly can. So he was my first coach. And I really just started playing like with my brothers, especially my brother Will, who's 2 years older than me. Playing in the backyard, playing fiddlesticks, all that stuff. And then I didn't start playing organized lacrosse until like 3rd grade, that time frame. And I played for 3 Village Lacrosse Club, which is like, so how Ward Melville works is there's 3 different towns, Stony Brook, Oldfield, and then Setauket, and they all funnel to Ward Melville, and that's where 3 Village Lacrosse Club comes from. And I played with those guys my whole career, never played for any select team. So that was a really cool experience to kind of grow up with them and then play with all those same kids in high school.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, Ward Melville, pretty well-known
Yeah.
school. I think they got they had a huge buzz like 2 or 3 years ago when they had that crazy comeback for the state championship.
Yeah, my brother was on that team. My little brother, he won 2 state championships. But my team, my senior year, we won state championship too, and it was the first time we won since like 2000, and we won in 2013. So we kind of broke the curse because West Islip was kind of king for a while there in Suffolk.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have a few teammates from Garden City, and kind of learning about the Long Island lacrosse scene and stuff like that. It's definitely super competitive.
We played Garden City my senior year. We went undefeated. That was our toughest game by far. And they had like Justin Garderding, who was a beast, and they had like some stud defensemen. So that was definitely always been a tough game growing up against the Garden City guys.
Yeah, definitely. Complete opposite side of myself. I think the best my high school team did was 8-8, and but we got some good players. A lot of lacrosse as their second sport guys, which is super fun to be around and kind of incorporate lacrosse into people's life. But it's nowhere close to like a Long Island where you got the ride or dies for the sport.
It's like Texas football, Long Island lacrosse is.
Exactly. And obviously that breeds a pretty high level of player and a high level of competition. You ended up playing at Rutgers. How did your recruiting story kind of start? I know you said it's a very interesting one and kind of a late one.
Yeah, so my older brother, Kenny, he went to Siena College. Mm-hmm. And that is where the current Rutgers coach, Brian Brecht, coached before. And so in like, I guess I was in like 5th grade when my brother, maybe 4th grade when my brother started at Siena, and I would go to all the games. I would skip school and go with my dad. And it's like a 4-hour trip to Albany where Siena is located. So I actually met Coach Brecht when I was like a little tyke. I would go to the tailgates after and talk to him. But my recruiting story, I was getting recruited by 3 schools, Albany, Colgate, and Army. And I visited all 3. And I kind of, all 3 just, there were some positives, some negatives, but nothing really just felt right. So it was kind of a tough decision for me. And then Rutgers kind of came on late because I spoke with my brother Kenny, and he said that he had spoken to Coach Brecht and that he's interested. So he kind of connected us. So I spoke with Coach there, and then I took a visit to Rutgers, and after that visit, I knew it was an easy choice. I think I committed like a week or two later, but it just felt right and felt like the right place for me and felt more comfortable than the other three. So
definitely. And I'm kind of talking to some other Rutgers guys, Chris Aline and Joe
mm-hmm.
Nardella. They all kind of said that the recruiting kind of happened later. And obviously you are three guys that are currently playing in the professional ranks. And I think that's really valuable. That's why I think that like lacrosse recruiting kind of starting, obviously it's September 2nd or 3rd, 2nd.
Yeah.
But the September 1st date and kind of starting recruiting as a junior instead of as an 8th grader, I think has kind of provided guys that maybe were overlooked or had a kind of late path similar to yours, gave them an advantage, and kind of like, hey, I have enough time to really develop myself as a player, as an athlete, as a student, to actually kind of show what's up and show that I belong where I belong in terms of playing.
Yeah, I mean, for your first point, I think Coach Brecht is really good at finding like hidden gems, like you said, Chris Aline, Joe Nardella, Jules, me, all these guys. He was good at that at Siena too. They had some success. They made the NCAA tournament for the first time my brother's senior year, and then they lost to Syracuse and they carried them. But it was all kind of guys that were under recruited, you know, that he was able to find. But to your point about the change in the rules, I think it's. I honestly can't believe that it was like that before. It's insane that kids were committing at 8th grade. I mean, I remember playing. There was this goalie from Syosset who like committed in 8th grade, and we were like playing them in a tournament, and I was just like, I couldn't even like wrap it around my brain that this kid was committed to Hopkins, and you know, like I was still a little kid then. Doesn't really make sense. The jump you make from 8th grade to junior year in high school is crazy. So I think that's the right thing. I think kids won't get overlooked as much anymore. And if they do, it's just more time to just, you know, keep working on your game. And eventually, if you put in the work, you know, a school will find you that fits your kind of aspirations.
Absolutely. And obviously, while you were at Rutgers, you showed out in the classroom, 4-time academic All Big Ten. And then in 2018, you were an honorable mention, USILA All-American, Media All-American, and then second team Big Ten. What kind of clicked in 2018 that was different from your other years?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2018, but I spent 5 years at Rutgers because I redshirted my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So freshman year, I was coming off a great season at Ward Melville where we went undefeated, won state championship, all that, was an All-American. So I was pretty cocky going into college, not gonna lie. But it translated onto the field. I was having success, you know, in practice and stuff like that. And I felt good about my game and how it was elevating in terms of, you know, being kind of full-time lacrosse when you're in college. And then about a week before our first game, I tore my ACL. And so season was dead there. And, you know, went through the rehab process, got surgery in like March, rehab throughout all the summer, sat out fall ball. And then, so this is my redshirt freshman year. I kind of got thrown back into it during preseason, and I was running like a two-way midi role where I was playing offense, getting back on defense, primarily offense, but, you know, was getting back on defense to prevent transition and stuff like that. And I felt good physically, but mentally it was just going a little too fast for me. I had some unlucky breaks in some games. I hit a lot of pipes that year, which maybe could have swung some things the other way, but is what it is. And about probably like our 6th game, I got moved to D-mid, where that was my role on the team from that point on up until my junior year. About halfway through, I played D-mid, and we kind of ran like a lot of transition. So I was playing a lot of early offense and stuff like that, but it wasn't what I was used to in terms of, you know, being a primary 6-on-6 offensive guy. And then Chad Tolliver actually got hurt my junior year before the Big Ten slate, and I got moved to offensive midfield. And that's where I had some success. I scored in every game, and I kind of just felt, you know, more comfortable in that role. And going into my senior year during that summer, I knew that that's the type of player I wanted to be. I mean, I put everything I had into being a D-mid, but I wanted to contribute more and, you know, be a star player on the team. And I kind of changed this is when I started living with Jules too. And he kind of changed my mantra around doing extra work and stuff. Cause when I was playing D-mid, I wasn't doing that type of stuff. I was just going to practice, and then going home, which isn't the right thing to do. But I started to change how I trained. I started to change how I ate. That summer I worked on my game more than I ever had. I would go to the field every day and would be there for like 2 hours. I stopped going out as much, stopped hanging out with some people, started, leaning on some other guys like Jules and other people that I trusted and I knew kind of had the same goals that I now had. And then that senior year, I just hit the ground running. I felt that confidence again that I had back in high school, and felt like I was, the best player on the field. And that's a big thing I always say is when you step on the field, like if you're not thinking you're the best player on the field, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage already. You got to have that mindset. And I kind of took that and it spearheaded into the spring season. And that was a unforgettable season. I wish, we did a little bit more to make the NCAA tournament. We kind of fell short of that goal, but it is what it is. I'm just happy that I was able to turn around in time and continue my career going forward.
Absolutely. And then, so you said in 2018, so then did you do a graduate year as a student?
I didn't do a graduate year, but I just finished some classes that I had to do.
Yeah.
So I just graduated in 5 years, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I know so many more people are going to be kind of looking in that 5th year route, whether it's like finishing classes a little bit later and stretching it out longer, or kind of doing a graduate program just with the change in the rules based on that COVID kind of thing. Do you have any recommendations to people kind of looking to go that route, either in a mentality standpoint or in kind of just kind of how it felt, kind of the difference? Obviously, if you're kind of still doing the undergrad thing, doesn't feel, I don't know, does it feel different as kind of a 5th year player?
It didn't feel different. Honestly, I wish I could go back and do like a grad program. Mm-hmm. Because there's no reason why I couldn't have. I could have graduated in 4 years easily and then did the grad program for a year. I was just kind of, I don't know, I guess my head was on straight then. But in terms of your question, my little brother's actually going through that right now because he's at Georgetown, and he's going to be a junior this year. So he lost last year and it's up in the air for this year. So my advice would be, if you have the opportunity and you can get your grad degree and, you can get a scholarship where it's getting paid for, at least half of it's getting paid for. I don't see any reason why not. If I'm there and I have more, I would go back to college lacrosse if I had the eligibility right now, honestly.
Yeah.
So I don't really get why people wouldn't use it. But you got to think about what's best for you and what's best for your family. But if you could use lacrosse to get as much education, paid for and that experience, I would say, why not?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a rising senior at my school at Kenyon, and I'm deferring this semester to kind of leave it more open-ended to see kind of what things look like with COVID and then lacrosse.
That's a good idea.
And out of my senior class, there's 14 guys in senior class. 10 of us are deferring to kind of see what's up.
I didn't even think of that. Like my little brother, they're online classes for Georgetown.
Yeah, that's what I would have to do.
Yeah, he's down there, but him and his friends rented like an Airbnb or something. Yeah. Because I guess they can't have people on campus, and then they have to like train by themselves because they're not allowed to be on like Georgetown facilities, I guess.
Yeah,
it's just a weird situation.
It's just nuts.
But the deferred is a good idea. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so that's kind of, again, then with the graduate thing, that's something that I'm kind of thinking about and going through, and it's like, it's crazy, and having 4 years and like the money side of it's just nuts. Like the schools aren't changing prices for COVID, and then what's grad school look like, and it kind of puts things in a larger picture in life. And I've heard so many different things from different people. Like most of the people say like what you said. If I had eligibility, I'd be back there right now and play lacrosse as long as you can, because it's not going to be there forever at that competitive level that you're used to. Exactly. But obviously, it will be with you if you want it there. Lacrosse will be in your life. But kind of, what would you say to someone that's considering a 5th year with lacrosse?
I would say do what's comfortable for you, and don't feel like like I stayed at Rutgers because I loved Rutgers, and we were like building something. But I mean, if it makes more sense to you to like go elsewhere, whether it's for education purposes or maybe just, you know, like Stony Brook. If my brother wanted to go to Stony Brook for his 5th year so he could live at home, save money there while he's getting, you know, that's a perfect route too. So just the big thing is just lay out all your options, right? And then just pick what's best for you, and don't be afraid to make, you know, the tough decision, because ultimately it's your life and you're the one who's in control of it. So yeah.
Definitely. You said that obviously training, everyone I feel like that's kind of had a breakout season really describes a really difference in that summer training before fall ball. And just personally, I had something similar in high school. I don't think I would have played college lacrosse if not for a summer like that. Literally, like you said, spending 2+ hours at the field every day, weight room, running, lifting, and all that stuff. And just like personally, I gained like 25 pounds in a summer just by doing that, and like that helps. And then what did you change food wise, and obviously training wise? It's kind of, people know that lacrosse, what you got to do to put in the hours. What the food wise worked for you, changing your diet?
Yeah, so I'm big on the diet now. I mean, back in college, I was eating like absolutely terrible. I was eating like 4 for $4 deals from Wendy's, penny a la vodka dinners, like just stuff that is not good fuel and ultimately catches up to you, right? Like I remember I was weighing in at like 178, and that is way too heavy for me. I'm like 163 now, and that's really where I should be. But what really changed is with help from my girlfriend. She's kind of my nutritionist. I joke with her. But you know, introducing like vegetables, like, I mean, I eat broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, spinach all the time, getting a lot of protein and the right protein, like, you know, chicken. I eat grass-fed beef. I'm kind of crazy about it. Good carbs too. I don't eat really bread or bagels anymore. I kind of stick to sweet potatoes, rice,
those macros,
stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. And I try to change it up a little bit. Like I went on a keto diet for a little bit, so I'm not strict to just eating the same things every single time, because I kind of get bored of stuff. I like to try and cook some interesting things that I see on like online or whatever. But yeah, I think diet is a huge aspect that people overlook. And even in college, like there's healthy options at the dining hall and stuff. Like you don't have to go with the pasta dish or whatever it is, or the cheeseburger. Like they have grilled chicken there, they got veggies. And that really just directly affects your way, how you feel on the field. I mean, I remember when my diet changed, like I was never out of energy. I was able to run all day. I was never short of breath. And I think I was able to recover quicker too, because my body wasn't weighed down by all the trash that I was putting in. So that's a big thing that I'm really glad I changed, because I would not be in the PL right now if I was still eating 4 for $4 deals.
Definitely. Knocks out that sponsor from Wendy's, but definitely helps on the playing side of things. And I think food's so important. Personally, I have celiac disease, so I kind of have a limited diet in general. But I've really kind of taken to cooking, like you said. I'll have to send you a recipe after, because I know Washington obviously has that salmon. There's a super nice salmon dish that I make that has
that sounds good.
Broccoli, potatoes. You can do sweet potatoes or potatoes, asparagus. You kind of do it in one big pan and throw it in the oven, and just kind of like let the vegetables cook around the outside, and then you put your salmon in after, and kind of do a garlic butter lemon type deal, and then eat it all after. And you can either, if the pan cools down enough, you can eat it right out of the pan, or you can kind of plate it as you'd want. But I'm super into the cooking and kind of making sure you eat all your food. And like I was just talking to Jerry Raganese last week, and he's doing this like obviously for him it's a crazy diet, but like he's doing this fasting, but 20 hours fasting, 4 hours not fasting. So he only eats for 4 hours a day, or he has that window, but realistically he only has like one meal, and he eats like a steak and 12 eggs every night, and that's it.
I seen his like pictures on
he's
Twitter
nuts with that. It's crazy.
I try to do the intermittent fasting too. Like I'm not too like strict about it, but I try to keep that like 8-hour window where I eat. But the funniest thing about eating healthy, right? Like, I guess why people don't eat healthy is because it doesn't taste as good, right? Or like they want the the joy of the taste that like the cheeseburger gives them. But
Yeah.
this food you make, like that dish you make, is way better and fulfills you and like satiates your cravings way more than any of that trash food that you put. So it's like
100%.
if you just commit to it and you do it, like you can make good food that tastes good all the time, you know.
Have you dipped your toe in it and using bison at all instead of
bison?
beef?
I have bought bison before. I haven't done it too much. I have these like bison like beef jerky bars that are actually really good. They're like Jamaican style jerk or something.
Yeah.
So they got a little bit of kick to them, but they're good. I've done lamb before too. I like lamb a lot.
Yeah, lamb's cool. I really like goat cheese instead of like
goat cheese.
Yeah, like hard goat cheese, like a manchego. Like you gotta. It's a little expensive. Oh, it's like if for someone like, I feel like cheese is another thing. Like you said, like you can like feel bogged down by it depending how much you eat.
Yeah.
And like the goat cheese, I put in like last night. I made a plant-based burger type deal just to try it out.
Okay.
Like I think it was Beyond Beef or whatever. And like I did that with like a sriracha mayo on the buns and stuff, and then like it was obviously the celiac gluten-free stuff, but then like goat cheese inside the burger with like and then avocado on top of it, and like regardless if it was plant-based, it was one of the best burgers I've had the entire summer. And like that's crazy that like it's super obviously it's healthy for you or whatever.
What does goat cheese taste like?
It pretty much tastes the same. Like it's a different, like I think it's a little bit different in terms of like that aftertaste, you know, like you have with cheese, like it tastes more like an aged type cheese. But if you can find it at the right price, obviously the price is the thing that I wait for.
True.
It tastes really good. And like there's a bunch of like I like hard cheese more, but I don't know. I try not to eat a lot of cheese, but I love nachos, so that's kind of the death of me.
I don't eat a lot of cheese. Sometimes like a little bit here and there, but. Have you ever had nutritional yeast?
I do, yeah. My mom loves that to add to stuff.
That stuff, like that's pretty much my cheese now because, like, especially if you like say you put it on chicken and you let it cook, like it kind of melts into it.
Yeah.
It's so good. It gives it that like kind of like creamy feel when you combine it with some dressings and stuff. I love it, and it gives you all the vitamins that like people take too, which is
exactly, 100%. I found like that same company that I'm sure you're talking about that Braggers or Bregman or whatever.
Brags or whatever they're called. Yeah.
They're like panko breadcrumbs to coat like chicken in or like fish or like shrimp are super good too, and they have kind of like almost the same properties of the nutritional yeast. I don't know if you ever give that a try. I think it'd be worth it. But I love talking food.
Usually when I make like, sometimes I make like chicken cutlets, but I use almond flour, coconut flour. But the panko crumbs could be way better because the almond flour kind of, if you want it to get like that crunch, you got to cook it for a long time, and then the chicken kind of gets dry. So
almond flour is tough to deal with. Like, if you're looking for something that's a similar flour, cup for cup, the gluten-free flour has the incorporated like a potato flour, a rice flour, almond flour, but it combines it to have a good mix of everything. So if you're looking for a non-traditional flour, that's like by far for me the best. I've made pasta from it, like fresh pasta from it. I've coated chicken in it. I've done like everything you could think of with it. And like it tastes better than almond flour. It's easier to work with and like compared to like a coconut flour too. But yeah, I think it's if you're gonna try something, you can get like a little bag of it and give it a whirl. But it's super easy and it's not too expensive because obviously almond flour can run you a little bit.
Yeah, I can. I gotta expand my horizons.
Yeah, well, I could talk food for. I literally have a food dish right here that I was working on.
That's awesome.
It was a really good like pasta. I made the pasta and then I made like this spinach type like cheese sauce, almost like a pesto, but instead of using basil, I used spinach to get the more protein, and it tasted really really good. And it was just like pasta, chicken, spinach, and then I did like a fire roasted tomato for more veggies.
Damn, dude, you're like Chef Ramsay in there.
Yeah, I have a food Instagram if you want to give it a follow for a plug. Chef Gobi, aspiring.
If you have recipes on there, then I'm definitely gonna hit that.
Yeah, I'll start doing the recipes. Right now it's just pictures, and I always joke with my friends that I always like to cook for them and stuff. They joke that my picture taking of the food is like a 2 out of 10, but the food is like an 8.
Yeah, my girlfriend takes all my pictures. Don't worry, I can't do that either.
That's smart. Well, then I guess kind of transitioning into pro lacrosse. You were drafted by the Ohio Machine. How long did you spend in the MLL, and like what teams did you kind of play for, and what was your experience like?
Yeah, so I got drafted 2018. So this is when the PLL wasn't a thing yet, so it still had all the players. And the Ohio team, like, they had a lot of injuries, and then I think there was there might have been like a World Games that year that, you know, some of the top players had to leave for. So I just never got an opportunity for them. Like, and they definitely could have used me, like, not trying to do my own horn or anything, but
yeah, they had a tough year.
They were kind of running low on players too. Like I remember they texted me during the week once, like, are you available for this week? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm available. And then just never heard anything from them. So it really pissed me off. Like, really pissed me off.
And they own the rights too. You can't play for another team when they own your rights as a rookie.
Yeah. I just didn't understand it. But I kept, like, I was living at home then, so I kept working on my game, you know, trying to keep myself busy, staying in the weight room, stuff like that. And then then that's when the PL got announced. Like, I obviously wasn't a part of that. And this is when Ohio was still around. So I signed with them because they needed players now. And then they got disbanded for whatever reason, them and the Charlotte franchise.
Yeah.
So I entered into, I forget what they called it, but it was like
player pool pretty much.
Player pool pretty much. But there was like a draft where the remaining teams could pick from the player pool in whatever order they made. I got picked up by the Blaze with Spencer Ford and Liam Banks. And Liam Banks actually went to Ward Melville, my high school. So we had that connection. And yeah, played with them. That was a great team. I had so much fun playing with them. It was a cool team because there was a lot of Canadian influence. So we had kind of a box style on offense, and we were humming up the scoreboard for sure. I think we set the league record for goals in a season. So that was a lot of fun. And then going into that was kind of my goal, was to do well in the MLL and then go to the PLL. So I kind of looked at the MLL as, like, I don't say this, I say this lightly, like, because there's great players in the MLL and there still is, but I kind of looked at it as like the minor league, right? Like, you show out in the minor league and then you get to the big leagues. Yeah, so that's kind of what my whole viewpoint was. Even going into training camp, before I even knew I was going to make the team, it was like, okay, you got to do this to get to the PLL, and ultimately it worked out. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, and then you joined the Archers. Obviously, when you kind of mentioned that Ohio thing and kind of doing some research, I was a little surprised that, I guess, like, Coach Nat, maybe having played for him, kind of would have, or at least being seen as a roster player for him, he would have looked your way. But more the merrier for the Archers. Obviously, you put in 9 goals. I think you had, like, the highest shooting percentage, or at least shots on goal. You're like 92%, I think. And then your shooting percentage was, I think it's 69. But you showed out in your first year, and you proved that you belonged, and were a big part of that Archers offense and that midi and attack unit that just kind of seemed relentless and had that creativity, and it kind of had everything. Did you interact with any of those players, obviously, before kind of the training camp?
So getting into the league, like, Tom Schreiber and Kyle Harrison are kind of your 2 access points to, you know, players entering the league, and they kind of tell you what you got to do. So Tom was actually the guy I was talking to, trying to join the PLL. So, and he's a Long Island guy, so I've known, like, his name growing up, and I played against him in a couple, like, tournaments during the winter, when I was in college. So I've always had that, like, I know who he is, but I never really knew any of the guys, you know, personally too much. Eli, who got drafted also in the entry draft, I knew him just because he lives out here, and I coach with his travel program sometimes, Cityside. So we had that connection, which I was kind of happy to have a friend going in with. But no, I just knew, you know, some of the guys. A lot of them were on that Ohio team that I was drafted for. So I went to one practice with Ohio, and met them, but I don't think anyone remembered me.
Yeah.
But it was pretty seamless like getting into that group, I mean, they're a very close group, and they're all great guys. So it was easy to fit into that locker room, and kind of just find your cog in the wheel and start interacting with all the guys. So I'm thankful for that it was an easy transition. It wasn't, too many awkward silences or anything like that. So.
Yeah, definitely. What was the biggest difference from the 2019 year compared to this year in 2020 with just the different leagues, different guys, positive, negative? Is there anything that kind of just really jumped out?
I think the biggest thing that the difference between the leagues is just the depth of talent. I mean, in the MLL, there's great individual guys, but if you go down the roster a little bit, it starts to tip off. In the PLL, that's not the case. There's tremendous players at all positions. And then in terms of like the game style, obviously with the new rules, I think it really, helps my style of play, which is kind of getting back in the hole, thriving in transition and stuff like that. And that's what I love to do. So I knew coming into the PL that I had the idea that I could, really make an impact, just the type of player I was. Honestly, when I'm in the field, like I don't really feel the rule changes as much. It's just kind of playing lacrosse. But I guess when you look at the film and you kind of think about it, like you're like, oh yeah, when I did cross over the midfield line, like the defense is way closer to me. Like you got to think about that stuff. But I think again, the only real difference is just that depth of talent and how every game it's an evenly matched game every single time. So you got to be on point. And it's always going to come down to, the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. So just making those plays at the end, and staying true to your team and staying poised is really the biggest difference.
What was Utah like? Obviously that you were one of the successful teams, specifically actually in Utah, that did the bubble. The women's professional soccer league did it just before you guys and didn't have any cases during, and no one really broke protocol or anything like that. And obviously you guys did really well. I know another Rutgers guy, Jules, kind of had a tough pill to swallow with testing and then having further condition that kind of prohibited his play. But besides those first kind of day, and I think just Jules, maybe Tucker Durkin beforehand, no one really tested positive. So how was that, and how was living in a bubble for 3 weeks?
It was, I mean, first off, the PL did an absolutely amazing job. The medical team, the operations team, it was perfect. I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything better. I mean, even like Jules's condition, right? Like them catching that and them being able to talk with Jules and tell him, it's probably not in your best interest to play and list all the reasons why. Like that shows true professionalism, right? Like that's what you would expect leagues like the NBA, NFL to do in that situation. So as much as it sucks for Jules, I think he's able to see the positives and the trend upwards that the sport's going and how professional lacrosse could be considered a real professional sport. And it's going to be not only the on-field play, but the off-field stuff like the medical and operations and the media team that does such a great job. So that's great. And then in terms of like bubble life was pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. The hotel we stayed in, we only stayed at the hotel and then the venue. So those are the only two places I got to see in Utah, which I'm a little upset about because it looks like a cool state to go do some outdoor stuff. But it was perfect. I mean, we had our own floor, the Archers, so like all of our rooms are right next to each other. Staggered times for breakfast, so we kind of limited interaction between teams as much as possible. And then the venue itself was a perfect spot. Great cafeteria, great fields, both indoor and outdoor. And then the venue, the stadium field, I guess, itself was pretty sweet. And they did a great job of kind of creating that game-like atmosphere as much as possible with like the crowd noise, the announcer, the cutouts, stuff like that. So overall, A+ effort from the PL. And I was joking with my girlfriend. I said I kind of miss bubble life when I got home, but it's okay.
Yeah, I just talking to Nick Ocello, he said that was definitely a shift, kind of the shift getting into the bubble and kind of coming out of the bubble. Obviously, from a more recent college graduate than Nick, I've heard a lot of guys kind of say like it's kind of like we're back in college. We're living together. It's almost like a dorm. Yeah. You got your film and you got your practices and all kind of wrapped together, and you have a facility, as MLL doesn't really have. I think the Chesapeake Bayhawks are building one. but they don't really have facilities for their guys. And did it really feel like kind of you were back at Rutgers, obviously with a different group of guys, but you were kind of back in that atmosphere that kind of breeds a continuous momentum towards a team environment with lacrosse?
Yeah, it was full-time lacrosse, which was like you said, I haven't had that since my senior year at Rutgers. I mean, in the MLL, I was taking a red-eye flight Friday nights, landing Saturday morning in Atlanta, getting to the hotel, eating breakfast, going to the shoot-around, taking a nap, and then going to the game, and then hanging out with the guys after. So it was kind of like I'm in Atlanta and then I'm out. Like, and with the bubble life, I got to see these guys every day, whether it was on the bus ride, to the venue, or just hanging out in between two-a-day practices. Like, that's where all the interaction, that's how you form friendships, right? And build that teammate relationship, and ultimately that's what is going to lead to championships. So I think it's great going forward because now we were able to have that, and now I think we're so much closer as a group. Even the guys that are close on the team, like now, guys who are new like me, Grant, Eli, Jack Rapine, like we're a part of the group now. And I think we would have been a part of the group in a regular season, obviously, but this just like enhanced it so much because it was just 3 straight weeks. Like, you kind of have to become part of the team and make your friends, or it's going to be a really weird 3 weeks. So I'm thankful for that. And I'm hoping lacrosse could kind of get to that point where it is kind of like more like in college where, maybe we don't just have one practice during the week and then a game. Maybe we have, I don't know, when maybe if we go to the city-based thing again, we can have people located in where the cities are, and get to have that old school locker room feel, because that's what everyone loves about sports the most, besides the on-field competition, right?
Yeah, you hear about guys like in the NHL, again, like lacrosse and hockey, I feel very parallel. I don't know if you played multiple sports in high school, but I played 3. So I was in that locker room literally year round, the physical one. And you really kind of feel that difference when you kind of compared to other sports, playing club or something, like, your guys, and obviously you're close with people, and like you might know some people a little bit better, some people outside of the game, but kind of having that locker room to build connections, just more time with the guys, and it makes a difference. And there's a reason why the PLL made the teams based on some colleges, and obviously that chemistry was built and it's been successful. Like, the Redwoods have a pretty good defense, and they all happen to play at Notre Dame. And the Whip Snakes, they have a pretty good defense, and they're all Maryland guys, and stuff like that, where it's very interesting how they structured it. And I guess segueing into next question, where do you think the PLL is kind of going to go in the future? Obviously, next year is the 3rd year of the league. How do you think that the league built by the players is kind of going to transition to their 3rd league existence?
Yeah, so I mean, let's hope that it's back to a regular tour-based season where we get to go visit these cities and bring lacrosse to some of the popular cities where lacrosse is huge, and then some of the more infant cities where lacrosse is growing, and we get to make our impact there. But I mean, the PLL, I think of it as just like a rocket ship, right? Like, it's just going to the moon. They do an amazing job of highlighting players, highlighting people's stories. The on-field play is amazing. It's such a fun sport to watch, and they're doing so many innovative things, whether it's like sports betting or, some of the like behind the scenes work they do, where you get an in-depth look of the competitive fire that you see on the sidelines and in the locker room and stuff like that. So I think it's really cool. And I was listening to something, some podcast where it was a lacrosse podcast. It might've been Paul talking, but he was saying how like baseball is made for radio, right? And then football is made for TV. And their kind of view is lacrosse being made for social media. And I knew social media was a huge, driving factor for them to increase awareness, but I never really thought of it of like a sport that's tailor-made to this new media. Like, it just never really popped in my brain like that. And I think that's so interesting because you really see, like, I mean, lacrosse is made for social media, right? It's like great highlights, intense athletic plays, and that will only drive engagement further. And I think it's just awesome to see. They're doing a great job, and I'm just excited to see what they have in store for us next. So I'm happy to be along for the ride.
I'm pulling up on Twitter earlier yesterday. Paul Rabel tweeted about that the misconceived notion that obviously the Northeast is the majority of the hotbed, and if you on Twitter you see Paul tweeted about kind of the fan interaction on social media, and obviously the first hotbed, which he listed as the Northeast, with from Boston to DC, which is obviously a massive area, and kind of he downplayed the fact that there's so many cities in there. But kind of exposing places like just from the season in terms of their engagement, Chicago, California, Salt Lake City, and Utah, and then where you are currently just outside of in the state of Washington and Seattle are all kind of based on the engagement numbers, very, very hotbed-ish, just based on the numbers, and kind of rising hubs like you played in Atlanta, or like you see a lot of lacrosse talent coming out of Florida and Michigan now. And like coming from Ohio, there's a lot of guys that, hey, I can play football, but hey, I can almost play the same position that I do in football, except I get to kind of have a stick. And either if that's hit people on the defensive side of the end, or kind of play almost like a basketball kind of mishmash football and basketball skills together, and then attack that, and kind of having spaces that have amazing athletes. And you hear about athletes that go play basketball, football, hockey, or any of those other kind of, or soccer, of the big kind of 5 sports. And kind of having those sports kind of have people like, hey, I think I should try lacrosse or give lacrosse a try. Do you see, if you could kind of pick 5 places, or maybe 3 places that you'd want to kind of play in? Obviously, I'm going to assume that you want to play in Long Island as a kind of someone that was kind of from that area. So besides your home area, where would you want to play?
I was pretty bummed when the season got canceled because they were supposed to have a game in Oregon, which is, the Pacific Northwest area where I'm living currently. So I definitely I hope we get to go there again, or at least somewhere else in the Pacific Northwest, because I think I was saying to Jules the other day, I feel like this is like a powder keg out here. Like there's so much athletic talent and so many athletic kids, and lacrosse is slowly growing here where kids are playing more and more. But they just need direction. Like they just need to be taught the right way to play lacrosse. And once they get comfortable with the stick and comfortable with, the different intricacies of lacrosse play, like they're going to be amazing at it. And I think with the PLL going here, and then having stuff like PLL Academy where you go, some professional players go and, run a camp or something in that town, like that's going to be huge for the growth of the sport in all areas in the United States, because the kids are able to connect with these professional athletes and learn the right way to play, and then have, kind of a dream and someone to look up to. So that's definitely one where I want to go. I think Minnesota would have been cool. I remember growing up and like playing against like a Minnesota team, and I just thought that was cool. Like, I don't think Minnesota, it's too big in Minnesota, so it was cool to play against a team going up there. So that would be a cool place to go. Want to go back to Long Island for sure. We were supposed to play at Stony Brook, which is literally like
your backyard.
Yeah, you could throw a rock from my house and hit it. So that would have been cool. I think it would have been a huge turnout. First of all, I think we probably would have like sold the place out, which would just create an amazing atmosphere. And then I would have had a bunch of friends and family there, obviously. And then I think Rutgers would be a cool place to play too.
New Jersey.
Yeah, they're building a new facility for lacrosse and soccer only at Rutgers. We used to share with it's called the Hale Center, which is like the football place. But they're getting their own facilities, and they're like redoing this field, so we're not going to be playing in the stadium anymore. So I think that field is actually perfect for like a PLL venue. I think you could pack it out, and that would just be so cool to go home and play at my old school. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, I wish we could play everywhere. I want to hit.
Yeah.
I'm a big traveler. Like I want to like go to every state in the United States. So if the PL can help me out with that, that would be sweet. I got to mark off Utah with the bubble. So
how many more do you have on your list?
Oh, I got a bunch. I haven't been to too many, but when I moved out here, my girlfriend had to finish school, so she moved out like 6 months later or something, and she actually drove out here. So I met her in Nevada, in Vegas, and then we did the drive back together. So I got to see some of the United States, which was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely I haven't traveled too much within the country. I've been to my grandparents live in Colorado, so I love that area and the mountains in there.
Yeah.
And then I've just based on lacrosse, you drive places, and just kind of living in Ohio or most of the year with school. Like I've driven from Massachusetts to Ohio. I can do that blindfolded. And kind of hitting all those kind of states like that. But kind of like the Pacific Northwest area, like three of my teammates are actually doing that and deferring and doing the majority of their 4 months of a semester on doing traveling and doing like a road trip of the Pacific Northwest, starting in like San Fran and kind of going all the way as east as Colorado and kind of just doing like a loop and coming back down like San Diego and heading back up to where they live in California. But that's super cool. I think that kind of doing trips like that, and obviously the outdoors area that like that can kind of offer, especially in the Pacific Northwest and like Utah and Colorado and like California. It's super cool and awesome. Good luck in doing that, and kind of like maybe that's something to do when everyone's still quarantined, just kind of to hit your places.
The hikes out here are amazing, dude. I've been doing my girlfriend and I did a bunch during the summer. I mean, it's just mind blowing every time. Again, I mean, some of them are tough, obviously, but once you get to the top, it's just like, Jesus Christ, like just puts things in perspective and, you know, kind of makes you feel smaller than you are. So
obviously you've had so many memories and experiences within the game of lacrosse. Obviously it's going to hard be a thing to do, but if you could pick out kind of like one or two or about your just experience in lacrosse or memories that you kind of always have with you, like kind of the upper echelon of that, what would be your one or two memories based on lacrosse?
The thing I always go back to is the guys I grew up playing with. We're a really close-knit team. And like I said, none of us left and went to any of the all-star teams, but we still, like growing up in summer lacrosse, we still played against all the all-star teams. So we were a town team competing against, you know, Long Island Express, the Dukes, whoever it was. And we had success. Like, you know, we'd do well, and usually what would happen is we'd pretty much go undefeated in like group play, and then by the semifinals, finals area, if we didn't win it, it was either like we were just dead tired because we just didn't have enough guys to compete against those teams, and they eventually, you know, overtook us in a close game in the finals or whatever it was. But that experience with those guys, like, you look back on it and like that was the best time of my life. And then to be able to culminate that with it was a state championship, first time in 13 years for Ward Melville, which is a storied program. And then we were also ranked #1 by Inside Lacrosse. Like, it's just amazing. And I always say like when people ask me like who my role model is, like I always struggle with that question because I'm like, I don't know, I never really had someone who I was like, oh, this is my guy. Like, I look up to him. Like, I want to be like him. Like, that just wasn't what it was. But when I look back on it and why I play the way I play, which is like, you know, I don't take any shit. I give 100% effort. All I want to do is win on the field. It goes back to the guys I played with, because that was our mentality, was we're going to empty the tank physically, mentally, emotionally to do whatever it takes to win. I don't care that we're undermatched. Like, we step on the field, we expect to win, and that's what we're going to do. So I really attribute my success and hopefully continued success to those guys. And I just thank them for giving me a great, you know, childhood growing up and having fun kicking some people's asses in lacrosse. So.
Absolutely. 100%. And if anyone's gotten the chance to play on a team like that and kind of a close-knit atmosphere, I'm sure there are things with their viewpoint would be exactly the same. Thank you so much for coming on today. I think everyone can where can people find you on social media?
Chris Mozo on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. Well, make sure to give Christian a follow, and best of luck either in the winter, if there's an NLL season, or what that looks like with the Warriors, and then kind of transitioning back with the Archers at the end of the summer. But best of luck. Good luck in Washington, and awesome sitting down with you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Keep up the good stuff.